Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. What you're seeing here is a beautiful chart of the old bond futures. That's the 30-year U.S. Treasury bond futures. Why I'm showing you this is simply um, bond prices inverse to bond yield. So just real quick lesson here, I guess, if you don't understand that. So as you know, if you're buying or selling something, of course, you want it to go up if you're buying it. If you're shorting it, you want it to go down. There it is. But as interest rates go up, people don't want to buy your bonds because your bonds that currently at a lower interest rate. So people will start selling those, and as they go down, interest rates move higher. And of course, the other way around, as interest rates drop, everybody wants your bonds because now you can buy them right now at 5%. If the bonds rally back up and interest rates go back down to 3%, well, everybody wants your bond, right? Because they can get a higher yield. So we always watch the bond price, knowing that interest rates work inverse to that. And as you can see, we've been on a nice little downtrend, and really we've been kind of pushing down the past several days. Moody's came out and kind of cut our, debt ratings, if you will. But not only that, we had a 20-year bond auction that was actually kind of poor on performance, I'll put it that way. And of course, yields went up. So now we've got on the 30-year and the 20-year interest rates or yields over 5% now, about 5.1, 5.2%. So the longer the term of the bond, the higher the interest rate. So as you get shorter in term of bonds, interest rates get cheaper and cheaper. That's why people like 15-year mortgage as opposed to 30-year mortgages because they can get a cheaper rate. Of course, you got to pay it off sooner, just because of the risk involved. I mean, how many people know what's going to be happening in 30 years, right? As opposed to 10 years. Well, 10 years, you can pretty much say, well, I'll probably be here, here, here. But 30 years, who the heck knows? And that's the thing that you run into. So that's why you have a higher interest rate on those things. Right now, interest rates are going higher. And that's just because of our debt and just because of what's going on. And we have this, I don't know, budget thing going through the House and the Senate, and it doesn't appear as though it does anything with our debt. So we've seen a big move down in the bond market here over really the past month. And so that's been basically pushing interest rates higher and higher and higher. And until something changes, we'll probably continue to see this trend. One thing that's really interesting about bonds, the 30-year bond especially, if you go back to the days of yore, go back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even in the early 2000s, bond prices really range between about what they call 85 and 125. You can kind of see this high over here at 122. Of course, it can go down to 85. But once it gets below 100, basically it's below par. Lots of people will step in and start buying bonds if we ever get back below 100. And the reason for that is, I mean, this is basically you're controlling a $100,000 30-year treasury bond here. So if it gets below 100, let's just say it goes to 95, that means you're paying 95,000 for something that they're going to end up paying you 100,000 for, plus the interest that comes out every 6 months. So once it gets below that, people will really start jumping on bonds. Of course, CDs at the banks are going to be really good and all those kind of things. So kind of keep your eye on that. Don't know if we'll get there or not. But right now, the argument is interest rates are moving back up. And of course, houses, mortgages are going to be more expensive and stuff like that. So we might see that kind of cooling down the housing market. So kind of keep your eye on that a little bit. Um, Another thing that kind of happened, kind of in the blink of an eye yesterday. Let's just kind of look at this. In fact, I'll put it on a 30-minute here, just kind of show you well, that's a bogus bar right there. Let's just get rid of that. Delete. There we go. Yesterday on Nvidia here, uh, I had to kind of go and figure out what was going on. But they were having a nice little rally here, and then all of a sudden they got tanked. And basically, the administration came out and said, "Hey, we're putting tariffs on." They already said they're going to kind of delay tariffs on China for like 90 days. Well, they came out and said, "But not on chips." We're going to, keep that one in force. And right when they said that, boom, it got slammed. So they kind of bounced up a little bit today, but that really kind of spooked the market. And of course, everything kind of sold off very quickly off that. And so just because more tariffs, right? Here we go. And of course, everybody needs these AI chips and all these kind of chips and everything like that. That if we keep tariffs on them, we're going to have to. I mean, you can't just go out and make a manufacturing plant and start making chips right now. I mean, it takes a little time to build a building and probably all the technology that goes inside of it. So, um, but yeah, I mean, we've got that kind of going on in the background. So, still more tariff talk. I mean, and we've seen this for the past several months here, and we're probably going to continue to see it for the next month or two. Everything's doing really good, and then everything gets slammed down, and because of this talk or that talk, then it has a nice, really big rally and all that good stuff. So, just I mean, you have to kind of grit your teeth sometimes just to kind of go along those lines. Um, and I've had a lot of people also this week, for whatever reason, everybody's talking about this, golden dome, golden shield, whatever it is, and kind of what that's going to be doing. Right now, the talk is, and I can't figure it out if it's 125 billion or 175 billion. It's a lot of money, regardless, right? But regardless of that, if it does start, coming to fruition, and all this stuff is going to be happening, um, the big question is, where do you invest in that, right? And I think there's actually several companies that you can actually invest in. In fact, if you go to like Lockheed Martin's website, they have a whole thing on their website about it. So you already know that Lockheed Martin is going to be. I've got some weird bars on this. What happened here? Let's see if that. There we go. Let's just go to a daily chart. You can kind of see Lockheed's just been kind of chewing around and stuff like that lately. And they're up and down and up and down and up and down on just news, what's going to be happening. But I think Lockheed, L3 Harris, what is that, LHX, right? I think I got that one right. Yeah, you can kind of see they're doing a little better. I think they're going to be benefiting a little more. And I think also Raytheon um, is going to be doing pretty well based off of this thing also. But I know that those three companies are probably going to be doing all right. And there's probably going to be some other ones out there, maybe even Northrop Grumman or something like that. They're more into airplanes and stuff. But they might be trying to benefit from it. I mean, you're talking about a huge system around everywhere. And, now you've got China, stepping in. Of course, China, right? Saying that we're trying to weaponize space, like they haven't already. But anyway, that's just kind of, the rhetoric and the talk and stuff like that that's coming around. Oops, got some stuff going on there. But anyway, but yeah, but I think if you just kind of step back and kind of look who's going to benefit from it, I think you've got several of those companies like L3 Harris, Raytheon, Lockheed, that will probably do pretty well if the money start coming out and they do start building all of these systems. So it's not going to benefit them right this second, but I think they'll start getting orders, and in the longer term, just kind of keep your ear on the Department of Defense, and they'll probably be doling out some contracts to build this and that and the other. So, but I think on a longer term basis, they're going to be doing pretty well. Um, we've had a lot of earnings and things coming out. I think everybody's been listening to them, and one of them that I was kind of paying attention to. Um, and just because, and I'll explain why, this is a daily chart of good old Target. You can kind of see they're getting kind of beat up, and which they should, in a way. And it's not because of really anything political, but yeah, they stepped into the political ring, so they're getting punished for that one too. Um, but for the past 13 quarters, they have underperformed Walmart and Amazon. In other words, they're not keeping up with selling stuff. There it is. And uh, even though they're a $95 stock now, um, they really have had a difficult time. And even with their earnings coming out, they were worse than expected. They're still really dragging behind in the retail sector. And if you're one to really love Target and want to buy the stock and stuff like that, you might not want to do that unless they can, get turned around and get their feet back up underneath them. I mean, it's not a bad store, don't get me wrong. I mean, we go to Target every now and then, um, but they just can't keep up with the Amazons and the Walmarts and things like that. And until they get somebody in there that can outthink the other retailers and get them back up on their feet again, then there it is. But yeah, they've really getting social backlash now. I mean, a lot of these companies are coming out and getting rid of their what is that DEI stuff and all this everything like that. So a lot of people would boycott, and that was one of the big news items back in January or February. They were going to boycott Target. Well, when they had the DEI stuff, they were getting boycotted from the other side. Now they're getting it from both sides, and they just can't make the sales. So they can't seem to do anything right. So I guess my big warning here is we start getting below 87 bucks on Target, they're probably going to take it down some more. So just kind of keep your eye on that. I mean, they're really going to have to get back above 110 to maybe catch a breath. And if they do, more power to them. I never like to see a company do poorly or anything like that. I mean, I don't care what they do. A company is a company, especially one that's been around for so long. But on the other side of that, unless they start changing something, they might continue to be hurt. So just kind of beware of that. Um, we still have quite a few earnings coming out. In fact, next week we've got Nvidia coming out. One of the big Mag 7 guys. In fact, we were just looking at an Nvidia chart, so it'd be really interesting to kind of see how that pans out next week. And we still have Costco and Marvel and Dell and all kinds of stuff. So we got some big companies still coming out next week. And really, next week is our last week of the month, and it's a short week. We got a long weekend here in the United States with Memorial Day on Monday, which is the last Monday of the month of May, which is early this year, to be honest, just because the month ends up on what is it, Saturday or Sunday the next weekend. So, but anyway, we'll have a shortened week. And of course, we're going to be getting our GDPs and our PCEs and stuff like that right at the end of the month. So it ought to be kind of an interesting week next week as we, just look at earnings and economic news. And of course, we're always going to get thrown a bunch of, stuff coming out of the administration or overseas or whatever it may be. So I still think we have some rocky roads to kind of get through a little bit here and kind of go that way. But anyway, um, and on another kind of note here, uh, there we go. A lot of people have been kind of yelling and screaming about gold, even though it's had a huge rally. And it's kind of corrected back a little bit, but right now we got another little bounce back up here. The big thing is can they get above 33.50? I think that's kind of your big number up there right now. You can kind of see through these bars over here. They had a hard time with it, and they're still probably going to have a hard time with it coming up here. Um, and so I think that's kind of your big hurdle in gold to get above that 33.50 area. But no, it came up from basically 3,100. So they've had a nice little rally here. And I mean, we're only a couple of $100 from the all-time highs in gold. So, but it's actually holding up pretty well. Even silver's been holding up quite well, especially in well, as long as it stays above the 32, 33 area in silver. I think it's really on the stronger side, though it's lagged gold on this little rally up here a little bit, just because it's getting torn between itself, really, just because you got copper pulling back and you have gold trying to move up and silver's, both an industrial metal and a precious metal. So it's kind of getting yanked apart a little bit trying to figure out if it wants to go higher or lower. So I think it's been a little bit lackluster on the little moves that we've seen in gold. Gold has a huge range right now. It's moving about $90 a day, which is really volatile. So, and you'll see it. You'll see $80 down days and $90 up days. But overall, I think with the deficits that we have and everything like that, it's going to continue to move higher. So, but yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing. Um, so, uh, I don't know what happened. There it is. It's really weird. My chat wasn't working, I guess. Not just I just shut it down and brought it back. Now we go. Could Trump's tariffs be a scheme to for? Um, I don't. I mean, what the question is, can Trump's tariffs become a scheme to force foreign, entities to, buy more U.S. treasuries, so on and so forth? I'm not going to disagree with that. I think the big thing is Trump is more interested in making deals to help the United States. There's that part. Um, and in doing so, it makes America, I guess, stronger. And in doing that, it makes our economy worth a whole lot more, which makes our, uh, I guess, our debt more reliable. And that way, people may be investing more into our treasuries based off of that. Now, if none of these deals go through, then of course we just continue down the same road we've been going down for the past, 10 years here. But right now, there is some optimism, even though you look around and it's kind of weird on the news. I mean, if you just go to the Wall Street Journal, everything you read about, quote unquote, the economy, everything begins with basically consumers are worried about the tariffs. Consumers worried about the tariffs. Consumers worried about the tariffs. But then they put a comma after it and says, but sales is all robust. People don't care. They're going to be out there buying anyway. Well, if they're concerned about the tariffs, then why are they going out there and buying anyway? And so it's like they're contradicting themselves in a way, just like, well, there's tariffs, you don't buy stuff because things are too expensive. I don't get it. But that's exactly what you run into with all of this is everybody has an idea of tariffs are bad or tariffs are good. Um, and this is my opinion and my opinion only from what I understand. That's what I'm going to say here. Um, Everybody puts tariffs on us. Why don't we put them on them? I mean, there. I mean, to me, it's just turnaround's fair play. If you're putting a 30% tariff on us, why can't we put a 30% tariff on you? I mean, to me, that's fair. But everybody seems to think to hate that. Now, if we're putting a whole lot more tariff on somebody and we don't get much of a tariff from them, then I get that. I get that argument. That's not really good. But outside of that, I mean, we'll just have to, I mean, I don't make any rules or regulations, so who cares? I just trade the markets to what they give me. So that's the big deal. Um, and going to another question here, what were those stocks? There was Lockheed Martin, LMT, Raytheon, which is RTX, and then LH Harris is LHX. Um, so it's not LHH, but it's LHX, just like RTX. Um, but I think those three probably are going to benefit the bestest. Um, but there might be others. I mean, there's always other companies that, are really good at doing this and really good at doing that. It wouldn't surprise me either if your U.S. steels and your Alcoas don't do real well also. They're going to have to get all this steel and aluminum and whatever else from somebody. And if we're buying American, we got U.S. steel and we got Alcoa. So that's the one thing that I would kind of keep my eye on just to see if those things don't start perking up also. Um, what is the buy zone for TLT? I don't know. It's going to be a long ways from here. You got to get above, looks like $86 to get there. So, and what they're talking about, there's these buy zone, sell zone on this chart right here. So it's got to move up to just a little over 86 to get that. In fact, the buy zone right there is 85, 86. Well, there it is. Looks like it's about 86, but I guess it's 85, 86. So, but yeah, that's just to start getting it kind of positive, I guess is what they're looking for there. But anyway, so that's just the news since Tuesday. Lots of stuff happens throughout a week, doesn't it? But yeah, I would definitely do that. If you're wanting to learn a little bit more about, trading gold and stuff like that, I think after this they're going to be running a thing that I did, I guess it was last week on Goldstream or whatever it was. And but hang around for that if you're interested in that. But outside of that, if you all are traveling this weekend, be safe. There's going to be some crazy folks out on the roads more than likely, especially out on the lakes and stuff. So watch out for that. The US dollar is worth much more than, say, Chinese yuan makes. Government would impose tariffs, but we actually want to spend our dollars to buy Chinese goods. True, I'm not going to disagree with that. However, you have to also remember that if they, I mean, what was the last number? 125, no, percent tariff on something. Well, if you're having to pay 125% more, that's over 100% on it, right? Even though we might have a stronger dollar against the yuan, that kind of takes care of that real fast. So beware of that. I know that they've on a lot of stuff they've delayed 90 days for putting tariffs on China goods and stuff like that. There are some stuff that they have not, so I don't know exactly which ones those are. I know that the chips are one of those things, but they've slapped some tariffs on some things that flat out they just want us to either make it or you buy it somewhere else. And it's really kind of crazy. You're actually seeing even in the earnings stuff. You're listening to the CFOs and things like that. Every one of them. Even Home Depot came out with their earnings. What was that, Tuesday morning or whatever it was? They're actually saying that they're trying to get their vendors to find other places outside of China to buy their stuff for Home Depot. Um, I'm just like, okay, so now even the huge companies like a Walmart or a Home Depot or whatever is telling their vendors, hey, go find it somewhere else because we don't want to pass it on to the consumers. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see how that pans out. Does that help that company, Home Depot, or does it hurt it? And does it help China or hurt it, right? Or help the U.S. or hurt it? So there's still some things that people are doing right now, company wise, no government wise, whatever it is, that I don't think we'll be able to see the actual ramifications from it for probably a couple, 3 months. It might take a whole quarter of sales to see how that's all worked out. So, um, ah, um, does my DTI email still work? As far as I know, it does. I get emails all the time. Don't know if I got one from you. I'll check my spam and stuff like that. This Microsoft thing throws stuff in all kinds of weird folders nowadays, just like the Gmail does now, and it drives me nuts. So I'll go see if I can dig it up somewhere. But anyway, alrighty. Well, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you all were here today. We'll be back on Tuesday next week, and we'll see how the weekend goes. I don't know who's going to be doing what this weekend, but some news is going to come out, right? And we'll kind of see how earnings come out on Tuesday morning and kind of go from there. So, but be safe this weekend, and we'll be back on Tuesday to see how things went.